I was looking up the data. With a film production bachelor's degree, what's the average salary you can make as a college grad? And I was looking at our revenue sheet for the year, and I was like, okay, well, if I've already kind of gotten there as a freshman in college working remotely across the country, then who knows what I could do if I moved there.
This is the Marketing Agency Power Hour, and I'm your host, Cal Wilder. Each week, we'll power through discussions on business challenges, success stories, and game-changing strategies. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, provider of bookkeeping and accounting for marketing agencies. Let's get started. So I'm very interested to speak with today's guest. He's a video growth strategist and a data-driven creative director with expertise in storytelling. He blends high-end cinematography with performance marketing principles to create brand momentum. He studies winning campaigns and applies proven frameworks to produce content that drives real ROI for clients. He's the founder and owner of Nonagon Productions. Mattin Peikari, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So tell me, Mattin, what's the single most powerful strategy for success in your firm these days?
I think a lot of it being a B2B company, like not to sound like, too stereotypical, but I think a lot of it is like thinking from the customer perspective. So just being very driven for their success. A lot of it comes down to like the different factors that I think people have in their businesses, whether it's like their marketing functions or sales functions. I think it really at the end of the day boils down to what's the customer experience like? Like, are they going to come back and work with you? Are they going to recommend you to work with other people in their field? So yeah, everything we do at the end of the day is really just with that in mind. And then that tends to complement how we act in other parts of the business. So it tends to make our communication better because we want it to be better for the customer. It tends to make our product better because we want it to make it better for them. So yeah, I think all parts are really affected by that.
So you primarily do video production for clients at the end of the day to help them tell their stories. Is that right?
Yeah, we do video production. So I would say the majority of it is brand storytelling, brand story videos where they're talking about who they are, where they came from, establishing authority in their industry. But that kind of breaks down into a lot of nuanced uses as well. Like, for example, like some people can say like an attorney or a doctor's office, they might, maybe not a doctor's office because they have some regulations about this, but they'll have testimonials of their customers coming through and talking about what their experience was like working with them, how it was. And that'll be a part of the brand storytelling piece, but that's also something that they might use within their onboarding process or where they're trying to get in more customers through the door, through their advertising or through their sales. So it's video production. It is going out on site with cameras or filming here in our studio. Writing the scripts, filming it, doing the editing, getting it all chopped up and put together. And then of course finding a strategic way for how we can like insert that and implement that into the customer's business.
Cool. Yeah. So you film a great video, but that's, the first step of the process. Maybe it's toward the end of your process, but like, then you've got to do something with it, right? So how do you decide what to do with the video and how to use it with what channels, et cetera, et cetera?
So it's funny, I think I've said this to a few people before, but the way I approach the conversation, especially like when we're talking to somebody for the first time and looking to work with them, it's rare that we actually talk about the video first, or like even within our first two conversations. Usually the first thing we're looking at is what are the bottlenecks they're feeling right now? Where are they feeling weak within their business? And then, my job is to find out how can we build a solution with video for that and around that. So, sometimes I'm talking to somebody, I'm reaching out to them and I say like, hey, I have a lot of great ideas that I would love for you to hear. And maybe I'll share these ideas with them, but they could be completely irrelevant. And I only know that once I start to have the conversation with that person. So they tell me more about, actually, we're completely slammed in work right now. We don't need any marketing, but like we've been growing so fast. I just don't have any time to do this. And then we go from there and realize like, oh, so you're probably having a lot of recruitment, hiccups right now. You're probably full to the chin with all these people being onboarded and trained. So we might make a training library. We might make recruitment videos to help them like source better talent and qualify the talent that's coming through the door. So there's really, a whole bunch of ways that we do it, but I would say the majority of it is at the very, very beginning of our conversations, is just figuring out what's the actual need for this video that they're having made. And if they can't define that for us, we honestly won't work with them because, the last thing I want to do is spend a bunch of their money and a bunch of our time working on this like fantastic video product, and then all it does is just look pretty on their website or their YouTube channel or something.
Right. So that pre-production strategic planning is critical before you even think about firing up the cameras, huh?
Yeah, yeah. And like me as a person, like I'm very like I have two passions, directly two passions. One is business, and the other is filmmaking. So, I apply both throughout that process. And the first side is just like from a business perspective, like how is this person or this company going to use this video to actually help them? And then we'll bring in the film production side of things and start talking about, okay, what's the video going to look like? What are we actually going to film?
What kinds of clients do you tend to work with?
We work with, I would say, I mean, we work in so many different industries. We work with vineyards, we work with healthcare offices, we work with law firms. But I would say if you were to kind of dial it in, we work with services that are really focused on how they establish themselves within their industry and their brand. So a lot of times that's B2B services, like that can be manufacturers or construction companies, or that can be what I like to call big decision companies. It's kind of like a funny term we use to define who would you hire to make a really big decision to hire them? Like if you're going to work with a surgeon, you're going to talk to a lot of surgeons. If you're going to build a house, you're going to talk to a lot of home builders. And the reason we work with so many surgeons and home builders and lawyers and people in all these different industries is because we realize they have so much fierce competition that when they're trying to work with other people, that usually we can make them a video asset that's going to help them stand out. And it can actually help us measure the impact that it's going to make. So if it's one construction company in like a super busy area and they're just submitting the same bids to work on these projects as like these 10, 15, 20 other construction companies, we like to take the perspective of, okay, how can we make a video asset that's going to set you apart so that when you're talking to these people and the person's making that big decision to hire you, what about this video is going to change their mind or kind of help veer them into your direction?
So do you get into measuring conversion rates and things like that before and after the video is implemented?
Yeah, good question. So it does depend on the project. Like some videos we make, they like I said, they could be recruitment videos, training videos, or just purely like brand videos that don't have much to do with conversions. But in another sense, yeah, we do videos where we're directly putting them into like advertisement campaigns, or we're putting them into lead funnels or places where we actually want it to increase the conversions. And then in that case, yeah, we're tracking the conversions. We're looking at the numbers beforehand so we can get a sense of idea where our starting point is, and we're also like, let's say we're putting it onto a landing page of someone's website. We're looking at that landing page and saying, what are the weak points here that we're going to prove in this video? And then let's directly take those conversions and numbers you have right now from your current data and use it as a benchmark for what we're going to try to beat when we put out this video.
Now, are you typically working alongside other agencies with these clients, or are you in there alone sometimes too?
I would say probably 90% of the time we're in there alone. Every so often we'll get contracted in by a separate agency. So especially like much larger companies, a lot of times they just have contracted out these agencies that kind of handle all of their needs. So they'll bring us in for the video side of things. But typically because of our full service approach, people like working with us because we just really do it end to end. And when we do work with agencies, we have a little bit of a less control. So even if those projects come through the door, I'm not always saying yes to them because I'm not, putting that much dependency unless it's an agency we have already a really good relationship with, which we do with a few. But if it's someone new, I'm going to be a little bit more hesitant to say, yes, I will just deliver you this raw footage, just acting purely as a video company and not as a video strategy firm because, I don't know what they're going to do with that footage is actually going to help the client. And I don't know if this project's going to be worth our time to say we helped this person or we just gave them, again, like a nice, pretty video to use.
Right. You're going to be a vendor to another company, or you're going to be a partner to a business owner. Yeah. Yeah. Similar in my business, we work with some clients that have, CFOs in place, and we do some of the bookkeeping and accounting work under the CFO. But, in those kind of engagements, we kind of feel like we're a vendor to the CFO rather than a partner working directly to support the business owner. So, we love it when we can work directly with the owners and not, you know, through an intermediary or something.
Absolutely. Yeah. At the very start, like we were working mostly with, I mean, as you would assume with video production, right? We were working mostly within the marketing sector. So like a lot of our relationships were built with like the marketing directors, the communication directors, the CMOs, things like that. But as we kind of move forward, we realized like we can have a little bit more utility with our video. So we just need to kind of shift our perspective and our approach to how we create them. So that's when we started kind of, approaching the owners because the owners could point us in the right direction because, their bottleneck might be within the sales or within the marketing or within the recruitment or whatever it is, even in the operations. So, yeah, we try to approach them first and see like, hey, you tell us where the need is, and then we're going to work something out that makes sense for you, rather than us, offering you an opportunity that you might not even need or you might already be crushing yourself.
Is there an example of a success story, project that you could share with us in a little more detail?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a ton. So, um, I think one really nice one that comes to mind, just literally because yesterday I was talking to them again on the phone, the client. Um, it was this one we had worked with last year, and it was just really heartwarming. So it's a home builder, and we made a video for them. And what I loved about this video so much is that it was a family business. So the storytelling aspect that we got to build into that video had such an impact on the people that are coming through and watching this video because they can see the history. I mean, like we literally show like family photos of the dad and the son that are being interviewed in the video while the video is playing, old photos of them, the son who's now the owner of the company as a child. And what's nice is someone's watching this video as a home buyer, you're seeing I'm trying to build a house for my family where we can feel safe and secure, and that matches our dream vision. And I'm watching this other family on screen talk about their passion for doing that for themselves and each other and all these other people over the course of the years. And yesterday I was talking to them again because they want us to kind of chop up some more content for them. But it was just kind of bringing me back to that conversation. I was asking them like, "How did it go? Have you been loving it?" And the representative at the company I was talking to, she was just saying like, "I love that video so much. Like it's been so amazing." And it was just making me so happy to hear because I know like that's the impact we're trying to have. When you're making videos and you're telling stories, if there's no impact, there's really nothing there. It's just a video.
So we've been talking a lot about how you try to deliver and drive success for your clients, but I'm curious what your goals and aspirations are for your own firm over the next few years. And if we sat down a few years from now, how we might measure that.
I like to say we're early stage. I mean, we're 4.5 years in, so relatively early stage, but also we're bootstrapped. So it's still very early stage. Like it's just slow growth, especially the first couple of years. So the next few years, I like to see us keep scaling the way we've been growing up until now. A lot of production companies traditionally, what their format is and the way that they're built is that they'll hire producers and then they'll contract out as subcontractors for the camera operators or for the editors. And they'll do this on a per project basis. One thing that's kind of made our growth a little bit slower, but made the culture of the company and our relationship with our clients so much better is that we do everything in house. So over the next few years, I really want to keep driving that home and adding more people in house. We're in a studio and office right now where it's half office space, half studio. I'd love to grow out to an even bigger studio, be able to do bigger and better projects. We don't have the capability for right now. And as we build out that team, I want to keep building those relationships with the other companies so that, when we go and work with them and they keep coming back, like I think it's something crazy, like almost 90% of the people we work with us again. I want them to keep coming back and seeing the same team members here. I'd love for our current team members, obviously, to stay on and keep enjoying working here as they've been, and just kind of keep growing in the direction we've been going. It's been really great.
Is there a story behind the name of your firm, Nonagon?
Nonagon is it's a nine-sided shape. So you have octagon, nonagon, decagon. And for me, it's just lucky number nine. It's always meant something to me. It's very special and very important. So I kind of wanted to incorporate that a little bit when I was starting the company. But yeah, besides that, it's not much deeper.
Cool. What's a challenge that you're currently grappling with or something you recently had to overcome?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of those, right? When you're in a startup. So I think, oh man, if I have to pick one, I would say honestly, I think it's misinterpreting, as a founder, like where am I allocating my time in different parts of the business. So there's two main sides, right? There's the business growth and then there's the business fulfillment as the service business, any service business, right? Like half the time you're trying to bring on new works, new relationships, and then the other half of the time you're trying to fulfill on those relationships and deliver an act. So, one thing we ran into last year, 2025, is we had a ton of work come through and it was fantastic. And especially the first half of the year. And then we had all this fulfillment, and I was drowning in this fulfillment and trying to get this stuff done. That when we kind of finished everything out, I was like, oh wait, I didn't really build any long term systems to keep the growth coming through. So we had a little bit of like a dip for a month before we bounced back, and I went back heavy into sales and these relationship building. So This year, we're really just trying to build out the system so we can keep serving fulfillment to 100%, while still having, the business growth to 100%. And we're doing that like in a lot of ways. One of those ways is we're becoming extremely locally established. Like we joined our local chamber of commerce, volunteering at a bunch of events, donating auction items. We're sponsoring a few local things as well. Just trying to get more integrated into the community, see who's around here, befriend them, build these relationships so that we're really a part of the area that we live in, Northern Virginia, and yeah, just kind of keep growing in that direction.
Yeah, that's one of the definitely challenges we all face as small business owners, kind of allocating time between bringing in new business, fulfilling existing contracts, managing client relationships, you know, putting in SOPs to be able to scale the business, thinking about strategy, lot of pieces to that pie. And you can't, be careful about neglecting some of those pieces too much.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to ask you a couple questions given my day job is bookkeeping, accounting, tax, and CFO services for businesses. I need to ask you how you go about managing the accounting and the reporting and everything, the finances for your firm. Who do you have do the work and what kind of reports and data do you like to see, you find useful in making management decisions for your business?
We've been on QuickBooks as our main kind of bookkeeping platform. I think like a lot of people are, since day one. And then we brought on an accounting firm as an outside accounting firm, I think, I want to say 2 years ago. And they've just been helping with like the day to day stuff, making sure we're playing by the book correctly and doing all the categorization as we should be. Um, but I think like to me as like the founder, like when I'm looking at the stuff we're doing and I'm looking at the sheets, there's a few sheets that I have bookmarked and pinned, on my desktop that I'm constantly looking at, um, at least once a week, if not more. One of those is our fixed expenses, like our bottom line, like how much are we spending as a service-based business? It's really important to make sure that we can have, a certain level of revenue coming in every single month to cover our in-house staff, to cover our rent, to cover, all of the software. We have so much software, obviously, as a video production company. So that's one of the things we're looking at. One of the things that I'm constantly looking at as well is, really just like our monthly revenue. Monthly profit, I'm not too concerned about. I'm really interested in aggressively scaling. To me, it's more important what's going to happen to our company in 5 to 10 years versus what's going to happen to our company in 5 to 10 months. So, as long as we have somewhat of a healthy profit so that we don't drown in sink and we have like our emergency fund there and we have a, backup payroll if needed, if we ever need to cash into that. But outside of that, I'm just looking at like what's our revenue growth looking like. And I'm usually checking that quarter over quarter. There's bad seasons, bad months here and there. So we try to look at it on the quarterly scale.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's smart. You know what your break even is. So what your minimum revenue needs to be, and then you've got your growth goals and you want to see that revenue going up and up over time. Yeah. How do you make decisions about you know, when to pull the trigger and make that next hire and increase your fixed costs since your model is, internal W-2 employees, which are fixed costs. So how do you go about making the decision when to, increase that fixed cost?
I wouldn't recommend this to anybody else because it definitely is a razor thin margin to cross. But it's one of the reasons why I'm constantly looking at that fixed expenses bottom line sheet so often is because as that kind of grows and piles up, and that's built up of all of our, like you were saying, W-2 employees and things like that. Payroll is definitely our biggest expense. I'm looking at that sheet to see how much is that growing with the other things in mind. So, we might bring on like an enterprise level software solution that bumps it up a little bit, but not as much as payroll would. So it's going up a little bit on its own every single month, regardless. And then I'm also looking at the averages of our revenue that's going up. And basically, what I'm looking for is a large enough gap to see if we have about 3 months. That's kind of my safe zone. We have 90 days of consistent profit within that gap where it would be enough to bring on an extra W-2 employee. What I'll do is I'll take that 3 months of profit, I'll put that into a payroll savings account for emergency funds. And then on that fourth month, I'll make the hire to bring in the person. So we'll have 3 months of back pay for them ready if we ever need. And then we have basically on the fourth month, them come in and start working. And we'll start the hiring process probably like a month and a half in. I kind of act quickly on that because like we are kind of fast growing. We've been in business for 4 years, but we didn't have our first in-house employee till like a year and a half ago. So when I see that month and a half of explosive growth kind of coming through, and we don't have a short uh, product cycle, right? With video production, you're spending 1 month, 2 months, sometimes 6 months on productions. So when I see we have a few big projects coming up and on the roster, and I'm feeling good about them, I can kind of estimate our cash flow that we're going to be getting through the door, and I can kind of jump ahead on that and get on to the hiring process to get them through.
So it sounds like you're doing something similar to what some other firms I know do, where, they have a target profit margin, say they want to do net profit of 10% of revenue. And when they get really busy and are growing, that might go up to, 15% for a few months. And then they make a hire and that might go down to 5 or 6% or 7%. And then you kind of go back and slowly inch yourself back up to 15%. And then you make another hire and it drops to maybe 7, 8, 9%. And so you kind of manage toward kind of an average margin every year. But over the course of that year, it may fluctuate as revenue grows and you make those step function hires along the way.
Yeah, basically, I would say the only difference there is it's usually not like a one for one trade off. Like when I think about who to hire and what do we need to hire for, a lot of the times it's not. Um, I mean, I guess like a lot of other companies do, it's not what I don't want to be working on. It's more what's the highest impact and honestly like the ROI on the employee that we're bringing in. So a lot of the times, like if I hire someone, I bring them in the short term, like the 1 or 2 month, if we get a knockdown because they're just getting onboarded and trained, that's fine. But within the next 2 to 3, 4 months, like we want to see like an explosive growth coming out of where their impact was made as an employee, what they're doing for the business, whether that's in the fulfillment side or the administrative side, and then seeing how that helps us grow rapidly throughout. So we usually, once we bring them in, start to see that impact of them within 1 or 2 months. And then that grows us very, very quickly. And then that usually gets us to the point where we're like, all right, now we're ready for the next person because we once again found that kind of gap of profit to collect.
Where are you getting your new clients from?
I get probably 80 to 90% of our work through LinkedIn. And that's just through relationship building and outreach. And it's funny, I don't even have a ton of followers on there. I think I maybe have like just under 4,000. I don't have any viral posts either. But what I do is I'll go on there basically every day and I'll reach out to people. I will get in touch. I will try to start a conversation with them. At the end of the day, we all, especially like other founders, like we all have inboxes that are flooded with sales messages and spammy stuff. So what I try to do is I go on there and I see like, how can I just meet this person? How can I talk to this person? How can I start a conversation with something that interests them? I try to be human. I don't try to be a robot. I understand that people are busy, so I'll follow up a few times, but I also understand that people don't want to be followed up with a million times. So I won't follow up with them every 3 days. I won't, spam them with a bunch of AI messages. I'll just try to be a friend and reach out and find a reason for us to talk because, if there's no reason for us to talk, there's no point in having that conversation because then it's like, oh, I'm just here to hunt you down as the next customer, which I'm never trying to do. Like I was saying earlier, customer experience really is number one. And part of that is actually having a relationship with them, almost a friendship, if you will. Like we're so warm with all of the partners we work with and all the customers we have to where it feels like I can call any of them up, check in on them, see how they're doing. So I think, what I would say is it's mostly LinkedIn. And then outside of LinkedIn, we get a decent amount of recurring work and then referrals from agencies, like I was saying before. But then a lot of those referrals and agencies that we work with, initially we met on LinkedIn. So, if you want to count that too, you could.
What in particular excites you about the future?
One thing I'm really excited about is seeing like the mass adoption of video. It's just coming on so strongly. Everybody wants to do it. Like podcasts like this, even the past 2, 3 years have gotten very popular. Short form content has gotten very popular, bringing videos to another level. And I also think the kind of introduction of AI and becoming so vast and popular in the space, especially with video and creative, kind of gives us the opportunity as an organic video production company to create content that actually stands out and that impacts people. Going to someone's office and filming real testimonials and customer experiences and hands-on things. Like, I was scrolling on Instagram the other day and I saw an advertisement from a roofing company and the entire video was made of AI. Like the roofers were doing an AI roof with an AI hammer with an AI roofer. And all the comments were saying like, why would I hire a roofing company that doesn't even show videos of their roofs that they make, like that they actually work on? They just show AI generated roofs that obviously look perfect. And I thought that was so funny because I was like, that's exactly what I think as a video production company. So we use it to accelerate our processes, but at the same time, with it becoming so popular, it's actually kind of helping us because our work, as organic and powerful, impactful as it is, really is sticking out against all the other people going in that direction.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I guess real videos of real people, at least, at some point, maybe AI will get good at that.
I think the last thing that's gonna be taken over is, like, you can make a clone of yourself, and you can script that clone what to say, and you can do this and that, but there's a process you can almost compare it to documentary filmmaking, in the way that we create, which is we're asking questions, to the person behind the camera, but before we even start filming, we say to them, the camera isn't there. Just talk to me. We're having a conversation. And we build that conversation with interview questions we have in our back pocket, but we're not kind of going down a list and prompting them to answer these questions as you might, prompt like an AI to answer these questions. I, as a human, is asking them questions. I many times don't know much about their industry. So I'll ask them questions like an interested customer of theirs would ask. And it turns into this natural flow of a conversation so that when you're just recording the whole time and they kind of forget that the camera is there, the video ends up coming out to just being super organic and beautiful. And if somebody could have thought of it to prompt that to write it, it would be fantastic. But I do think we're a ways away of getting to that point where you can pull out those answers and personal stories and all these other things that people say on camera when it's just another human on the other end of the camera having a conversation with them.
So let's go back in time a little bit to little Mateen. When you were a young boy, did you think you'd be one day owning and managing your own business? And what were the kind of key milestones along the way that got you to where you are today?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I did always think I would own my own business. I never really defined it like that. Like my kind of North Star was always I want to be a movie director. I want to be a film director, um, which I am, and that's great. But I'm also a film director who's a business owner. So it's kind of like a two-way thing. But the other part of me, like I was saying earlier, is like my two-way passion really is filmmaking and business. So, like, I mean, it's a very, stereotypical, you've heard it a million times, entrepreneurship story. Like, I had like a neighborhood lawn mowing business. And then when I was 11, it's funny, I actually had a business card for that I found recently. And then when I was, I think like 14 or 15, I started, reselling luxury consignment items and doing stuff like that. And I kind of grew that to a point to where I basically had to quit because I didn't want to fail out of high school because I was spending so much time doing that. And then it got to the point that, when I was old enough, I was like, all right, well, I know what I want to do and I really like business. So let me just go start a production company.
So you skipped the college experience, or did you go to college too?
So I went to a year of college. When I graduated high school, I wanted to take a swing. Like I said, I wanted to just say, like, I know what I want to do. Let me start this production company. So I took a gap year after high school. I started my production company. It got off the grounds kind of well, not enough to not go to college. So I went. But while I was in college, I was in Colorado running my business across the country, which was acting and serving the DC area. And at that time, I was using subcontractors because, obviously I couldn't clone myself and wasn't even near the point of having employees yet. Um, and as I was working remotely, I was thinking to myself, like, man, if I can do all this with subcontractors and not even living there and we're going decently, like, what could I do if I actually lived there? So by the end of my freshman year of college, I was like, all right, this is at a decent enough point. I feel really good about this. And the lever that I used was I was looking up the data. With a film production bachelor's degree, what's the average salary you can make as a college grad? And I was looking at our revenue sheet for the year, and I was like, okay, well, if I've already kind of gotten there as a freshman in college working remotely across the country, then who knows what I could do if I moved there. So I thought, I'm only 19, I might as well give it a shot. So I went home, I went all in on it, and then, 6 months later, that fall is when we opened our studio. I left in May. I think August is when we signed the lease. So, or yeah, even less. It was 3 months later, 4 months later, maybe early September. So, yeah, and, really all just kind of came together, I think, when I dove all in, but it was rapidly growing while I was there, so it justified my decision.
Yeah, I know most of the people I interview on the show have college degrees, but I have interviewed a few that kind of skipped their last year and didn't quite graduate because they got sidetracked with business. I think you're the first who's, has 1 year of college under your belt and then you went straight into business. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's a funny crown to wear. My dad, he's an electrical engineer. He went to med school for 2 years, but pursued engineering instead. Both of his brothers are doctors who got engineering bachelors. My grandfather is a engineering professor, and he's been a professor for 60 years. Um, so yeah, it was kind of funny because when I was like, I want to be a filmmaker, that was already a little bit of an anomaly. I mean, everyone is extremely supportive. But then when I said I want to be a business owner, and leave college, it was like even bigger anomaly. But um, I never made any asks of my family to take a chance on me or take a risk on me. I was always like, I'm going to prove that it works first, and then I'm going to I'm going to present the opportunity. So when I went to college and I had it growing rapidly, I mean, almost every day I was, sending texts back to my parents and calling them and seeing where's this, where's that. So by the time I got to the end of the year and I was like, I think I'm going to do this. They were like, yeah, do it. This is going great. And I was like, yeah. So we were like basically all on board.
Yeah, so you were most the people in your direct family, you were traditional full-time W-2 employees working in stable jobs, it sounds like. Like, did you have anybody growing up that you knew closely that was kind of starting and building their own business?
There was a few people. I mean, I wouldn't say to where like I was ground level enough to like see them what they were doing and what they were up to and they were going, to do on a day-to-day basis. But I was also very much like a person who was like very unconcerned with the environment around me. I was very concerned on what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be. So like growing up, I used to just like read books on this is gonna sound so, stereotypical compared to everything else I've said on this call that is stereotypical, but, I remember reading I was probably, like, 9 years old. It was, like, a kid's version autobiography book of Bill Gates, and I remember being so fascinated. I thought it was, like, the coolest story ever. It was at the local library, and then I read another one, from the same series about Steve Jobs, and I felt just as fascinated, and I was like, "Whoa, this is so cool." Is he and, obviously, like, the ignorance of a 9-year-old reading that book thinking like, "Oh, yeah, I could do that too, for sure. Yeah, I could be I could be Steve Jobs or whatever." But I think it was enough to, like, influence me to think early on just that, like, I don't really need to do what other people are doing because clearly there's other people out there in the world that have made, other paths work. So, I knew for a fact I wasn't gonna do a W-2 off the bat. Like, I knew going into the film industry, at the very least, I was just going to be a freelancer bouncing from job to job.
So if you could go back in time a few years and give yourself some advice about building your firm, is there anything in particular you'd tell yourself?
Yeah, I would probably say, look at the bigger picture. I think a lot of early founders like can fall into the same hole that I did, which is just getting really caught up in, how's business doing this month or how is business doing the last 2 months, not how's business doing the last year. Like where are you 12 months ago versus now? Where are you 24 months ago versus now? That's probably an issue that I still run into, but just looking at the bigger picture and focusing on the longer term goal because we have more time than we think. You don't need to be focused on your next goal or the next quarter because if your real goal and your upper echelon is focused on what am I going to be able to get done in the next 10 years, the next 20 years, the next 30 years, depending on how focused you are on this one idea. And I know I'm focused on this idea very intensely then that means the steps I'm taking now are just going to gradually keep stacking on each other. And it's inevitable that you're going to find that quarter to quarter growth when you're working towards such a large goal over a large period of time.
Yeah, there's some quote, I'm trying to remember exactly what it is, but it's something along the lines of most people overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year and underestimate what they can accomplish in 10 years. Kind of meaning, you may have you have a big plan to grow like 50% this year. But the reality is you can't do that every year. But if you can just figure out how to grow like 10 to 20% a year for 10 years, you're gonna end up with a huge company at the end of 10 years.
No, yeah, that's completely true. Especially like the very, very start. Like I remember, I mean, obviously, like my first year in business, like I spent most of that time just I mean, I was completely bootstrapped. I was 18. I was just trying to figure out how to make a website, how to register my business license, how to I was making Craigslist ads for $50 headshots, like trying to get people just to hire me so I had some sort of creative portfolio. Um, so my goals that year, I was like a little disappointed on, but then by the end of my second year in business, I was like, wow, like I exploded this year. Because my first year in business, I mean, I was just so focused on getting things up. And then the third year was even more. And then the fourth year, there was a little bit of a dip. And this was the past year. And at first I was feeling a little bit down about it, but then I looked at a bigger picture again, like I was saying, And I realized I was like, there wasn't really a dip. You hired employees, you got an office, you had this, huge amount of, kind of operational growth that probably this year and the next year that's going to be shown into that explosive growth yet again. So yeah, it's exactly what you're saying. Like, if you focus on it year by year, it could be really, really good or it could be really, really bad. And it's just going to constantly switch time and time again, year after year as you grow. So it's much better to just look at the longer timeline and see what can you do over the next 5, 10, 20 years.
So, Mateen, when you're not working and trying to keep building this business, what do you like to do outside of work?
I would say probably my number one hobby is camping, camping and backpacking. It's funny because I hesitate to say that because I don't know if it's completely unrelated because I never go camping or backpacking without my camera. I love making like short little nature films and going out and recording things and recording myself and the nature and stuff like that, just enjoying the environment around me. So I'll go do that. I watch movies, I watch videos. I love one of my favorite things to do is, and everybody should try it if they haven't, just go to the movie theater by yourself one day. It sounds like the saddest thing in the world. It's like, oh yeah, movie theater is where you go to with friends or on a date or this or that. But someone who loves cinema, just going to the movie theater by myself or something that I really want to see, or maybe something I've never heard of, is like just a blind experience. It's super fun. It's super interesting. Usually I walk out with so much inspiration. Same thing with those camping trips. Like it's so meditative, it's relaxing, and I leave with so much inspiration and thought that whenever I do eventually come back to work, I mean, I feel refreshed. I feel like a new person.
So you're in like the Northern Virginia, DC area, right? So where do you like to go camping?
It's not the most ideal area for people who are super into camping, but it's not the worst either. We have a good amount of, state parks and national parks around here, so, like, hyper local, there's not a ton. You can go to Sky Meadows National Park, you can go to, this, like, one backcountry area that's kind of near Quantico, Virginia, but besides that, I'll just drive out. Like, there's a national forest in West Virginia that I like to go to. There's also one more south in Virginia if you go down. So there's a lot of places around here, but also, I went to school in Colorado, so I will constantly fly out to Colorado, go back there. I was in Boulder. I love that area, and I'll go camping and hiking up there all the time.
Nice. Sounds like you got some flexibility to be able to do that, which is good.
Yeah, I like to set up so the only part of my job, I really need to be in person for, and I come into the office every day, but if I do wanna travel, it just means that I need to schedule my video shoots for a different part of the month, or I need to schedule my travel around my video shoots. So, if I wanna go travel, and I'm a big fan of the leave on Friday, come back on Sunday kind of thing, and as a founder and, like, a lot of founders, like, I normally work the weekends to a degree, even if I say I'm taking them off, like I'm doing some sort of work, but if I want to be here when my employees are here. They're here Monday to Friday. So, Friday after work, I'll drive out somewhere or fly out somewhere. And then Sunday evening, I'll drive back or fly back in. And, I'll have this super cool experience I did over the weekend and be fully refreshed and ready to come back in.
Awesome. So if folks want to get in touch with you to talk about doing video production for their businesses, or agencies want to bring you into their clients, or somebody just wants to learn more about your story and your business, what's the best way for people to find you?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn's probably the best way for people to find me. I'm posting on there a few times a week. Lots of stuff about my story, my interests, our client case studies, things we're doing in the business. My perspectives as the owner of the business, how things are going growth wise, what it's looking like, running it, the insides of it. So I'm on there all the time, every day. If somebody wants to reach me out, say you guys should come up and say hi on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mateen, for sharing your time and your story with me and with the audience here. I really appreciated learning your entrepreneurial journey and how you go about helping your clients. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a great chat.
So for those listening, if you enjoyed hearing the story, you learned something, you laughed or cried a little bit or whatever, please tell your peers about this podcast. Let's let other marketing agency owners know it exists as a resource and help build this community. Thanks again, Mateen.
Yeah, thank you.
This has been another exciting episode of the Marketing Agency Power Hour. We'll see you all next time. Another episode in the books. Thank you so much for tuning in. For show notes and more, please visit marketingagencypowerhour.com. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, providing marketing agencies with bookkeeping, accounting, and finance support. With SmartBooks, you gain the clarity and confidence to make your agency a success. Until next time.